Accident and emergency figures are the most visible sign of the strain now placed on the English NHS. Rising patient demand has overwhelmed the service's ability to cope. Let's take a look at monthly A&E performance going back to 2010. Since then, emergency departments have been aiming to deal with 95% of patients within 4 hours. That target, that is the dotted line. Now that's proved harder in winter months, marked in by these grey bars. If we draw in the line showing their performance, the most striking pattern is that during the last Parliament, A&E performance started to drift away from target. It's now well off, down at 85%. The number is even lower, about 77%, if you look just at traditional major A&Es, so-called Type 1s, and don't include things like walk-in centres. Our hospitals are overfull. We're miles from where we need to be to hit our targets.
It means that my patients are waiting in the waiting room, maybe sometimes standing because there aren't even enough chairs. Patients are waiting in corridors. Patients may have to be waiting in the back of ambulances. And then when patients even get into a cubicle, sometimes there are 2 patients per cubicle, just with a temporary partition between the 2 for a bit of privacy. It is sometimes just a number, just a statistic, but it's having real effects to patients.
Some individual hospital trusts have seen astonishing collapses in performance. Take the Blackpool and Royal Cornwall trusts. They were respectively at 61% and 77% last year, both poor performances. This year they dropped to 40% and 58%. The NHS is 70 years old this year, and we know by now the pressures on it will keep growing. Medicine's advancing so we can treat more stuff, and our society is ageing. But the NHS budget has been growing at a historically slow rate since the onset of austerity under the coalition. It keeps becoming ever more efficient, but it can no longer meet the demands being placed upon it. The underlying problem is best illustrated by this chart. The number of people turning up to A&Es just keeps rising. And this isn't about people who shouldn't be there, skipping the queue at the GP. You can see that if you look at the past 12 months. The number of people turning up at major A&Es has risen by 1%. But the number of people sick enough turning up to A&E who need admitting into hospital is up by 5.6%. The underlying pressure is that we're an ageing society with rising sickness levels. And this year, a bad case of flu.
We're seeing the same as we saw last year with no change, and it could just get worse and worse next year and the year after. And that's the real worrying thing, because we're at breaking point now. Who knows where we'll be if nothing changes by next year.
There are no easy fixes here. The elastic won't spring back as winter thaws. Either we pay more in tax or we'll pay more in the form of worse healthcare.